Hello and welcome to a look at the launcher for the Commodore 64, a game that was made by Beam Software. The nation of Japan has a very unfortunate ability to offset monsters of various kinds from time to time, and in this game that is no exception. Some explorers has located some interesting objects that they have taken back to the islands. And of course, such objects just happens to be some of your eggs. So of course you are well and truly pissed off and want to teach those puny, pathetic humans the error of their ways and recover your eggs. While you're doing so, you may as well have some fun, smashing up some buildings, eating some soldiers, civilians, whatever else is edible, and destroy some tanks and helicopters for good measure. Let's go over technical aspects first in this video. The graphics are impressive and underwhelming at the same time. Having a character of that size in any Commodore 64 game without any signs of tearing is quite impressive. The problem, of course, being that is the mainly, or the main and only even impressive thing about the graphics. Don't get me wrong, you can easily distinguish civilians from soldiers, helicopters from tanks, and buildings from not buildings, but it just feels like the effort has definitely been put into making the monsters seem rather impressive. Specifically, the buildings are extremely bland, and when you knock them down, blow them up, stomp on them, whatever it is you do, it doesn't feel particularly visually rewarding to take care of the buildings. They more or less seem to dissolve more so than collapse, blow up, whatever. There's not an awful lot of music, but what music there is decent enough, but I have no further comment about it because I don't think there's enough of it to actually comment on. So that leaves us with sound effects, which are not bad as such, but they just feel lacking. In order to give the illusion of running around with a 60-foot tall monster, I'm just guessing, by the way, random number, because random numbers are fun, but anyway, you need some sound to back it up, and I suppose the sound effects of it walking around is somewhat impressive and loud and all that stuff, but a more distinct sound when you munch on something, or a meteor explosion sound when you have an artillery tank firing at you, that kind of stuff would have been very, very nice and would have added to any buzzword immersion you would potentially get out of this game. The controls are a bit funky because you have various different things you can do with or without the fire button pressed, and sometimes it can feel a bit sluggish and not very responsive towards what you're trying to get your monster to do. So of course that leaves us with the gameplay. And as you have probably gathered by now, the gameplay is to smash things up and eat things and pick up things. If you see something white oval shaped, it is likely an egg, which happens to be the case. It is actually an egg. But those are not just objects you need to pick up. You can effectively use your eggs as a continuous system. If you pick up an egg and drop it next to some radioactive waste, you will cause that egg to hatch if you should die, and that will allow you to continue on from that point. The game has a bad habit of placing eggs after some radioactive waste, and you can also eat the radioactive waste in order to gain health. In that regard, the health system works very much like in a game like Rampage, where you take damage from getting shot, whatever else you get exposed to, and you recover health by eating stuff, mainly people and radioactive waste. There will be some petrol trucks running around from time to time, or driving around I should say, that you can smash and then drink the petrol, and if you drink the petrol you gain 5 fireballs per petrol truck's petrol you drink. But of course, to make things fun, there are also water trucks, which are supposed to be easily distinguished from the petrol trucks, but maybe it's just me, it suck. Anyway, if you drink the water from the water truck, you will extinguish any and all fireballs you have stored up. So that is something you should probably try to avoid. At some point or another in the game, you will bump into other oversized monsters because, of course, Japan and waking up monsters is a thing. And in order to progress, you will have to defeat said monster that you bump into. But it is not something I can showcase in this video because I never got to that point. I was sort of tempted to push it, get into that point, but the gameplay is not particularly rewarding. It is actually quite sluggish. And while the idea of running around with an oversized lizard smacking things about and destroying buildings and that kind of stuff is somewhat impressive and enjoyable, the execution in this game is not particularly well made. It just doesn't feel like it contains any excitement of any kind after you played this game for about 15 seconds. On that note, thanks for watching, take care, see you next time, bye bye for now.